I'd have to really work at thinking of something negative that Dad did.
Okay.
But
Well, what about, let me ask this though. I mean, Dad also came home, put his feet up, he didn't always cook, or he didn't do dishes, he didn't do...
But you have to remember that I was thinking at the time that was okay because he was at work all day and he needed to rest and Mom was always cooking. So... But that's a good one. That's a good potential negative.
Gender roles, very clear.
Very clear gender roles.
The man was having a hard time in order to figure out some of the negatives that their father went through to provide for the family. And here goes Michelle with all her damn feminism. Meanwhile, it worked for your family. I did not think that the content gods was gonna bless us like this here today, but here we are. Michelle Obama. She's got a podcast. We've been going over content of her podcast several times in the past couple of months, but she just got the man up there, the previous leader of the free world, her husband, Barack Obama. Now, this comes on the back of not only divorce rumors between the two, but then also recent controversy revolving around Michelle Obama's comments when asked by Angie Martinez, would you have wanted to raise a boy? And she said, no, it would have been like another Barack, receiving criticism from this side of the internet as to say, well, what do you mean by that? What's so negative about having a black man, another man that can ascend to the leader of the free world? How dare you utilize your platform to degrade his brand, his image? Nevertheless, they sat down and have this conversation, and I will say that the majority of it, and this is probably as of a result of the controversy, they focused on what being a man is. They focused on transitioning boys into men. They focused on single parent upbringing. Yeah. So we're going to get into this conversation. Oh, by the way, they also talked about the Manosphere. Let's get active on this conversation. So without further ado, now to start off the podcast, they're addressing the rumors in regards to the marriage and divorce. Let's listen.
These are the kinds of things that I just miss. Right? So I don't even know this stuff's going on.
Right.
And then somebody will mention it to me and I'm all like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
There hasn't been one moment in our marriage where I thought about quitting my man. And we've had some really hard times. So we have had a lot of fun times, a lot of adventures, and I have become a better person because of the man I'm married to.
Okay, don't make me cry now. Right at the beginning of the show.
Oh, that's sweet.
Don't let me start tearing up now.
And welcome to IMO.
Welcome to IMO. Get you all teared up. See, but this is why I can't talk. See, you can take the hard stuff, but when I start talking about the sweet stuff, you're like, stop, no, I can't do it.
I love it. I'm enjoying it.
But thank you, honey, for being on our show. Thanks for making the time. We got, as
you guys
Craig
are doing
said, we
good.
got a great
I've been listening.
Of course I've been listening.
Yeah, any tips, any
Stop defaming.
Craig can tighten up a little bit.
That's actually funny.
You're doing great.
Thanks, honey. That's why we're married.
Okay. All right, so listen, I wanted to at least show that part right there because I wanted to hear from them in regards to these marriage, divorce rumors. But let's flash forward a little bit where Barack begins to talk about growing up without a father and what being a man means then versus now.
All right, here's how you are a dad. And I didn't really have a bunch of uncles around or other immediate family father figures. So I'm kind of piecing it together. And
which is true for so many. That's the story for so many boys growing up these days.
I mean, in that sense, I think as unusual as my background was, that part of it isn't that unusual, right? It was kind of typical.
Yeah.
And
still is, even more so now.
I think a couple of things happened. Now, I was loved, and that's a starting point, right? The people who were around me cared about me, and I never felt an absence of that. And the second thing I think you learn to do when you're in that situation is, all right, I got to sort of, I have to adopt role models. I got to piece them together and get a sense of, all right, what does it mean to be a man? Now, later on, as I got older, you'd start recognizing that some of the ideas about manhood that were being given to us back in the 70s and the 80s, not all of them were great, right?
Can I ask you both to talk about what manhood meant for you? What it meant for you when you were little boys coming up, what you thought it was, and what you then came to understand it to actually be?
Well, I don't remember maybe when I was a really young child, other than the idea that guys were strong, they didn't whine, they were tough.
They were expected to go to work.
They worked
and provide,
right,
and protect.
Yes, I don't sound that bad.
And I think back about Dad. I think when I'm thinking about Dad as a role model, I remember the fact that here you have a man who has MS, and he's getting up and he's going to work absolutely every day.
Right.
And he is not complaining. That's another thing. Men didn't complain.
You don't
back
complain.
then.
You're stoic.
You were.
Now,
I love that word, stoic. Coach Carmody used to use that all the time, stoic. But our dad never complained. He never got up. He had a sense of humor. That was another thing that you learned from guys, is that you needed a sense of humor. Right. But one of the most important things that I remember is that you got along.
Got along in the world, period.
Period. You got along with the other guys you were with. You got along with your teammates.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm less interested in his comments, but nevertheless, let's get back to Barack's comments there. What I found interesting is that Barack is saying, some of the ideals that were instilled back in the 70s and the 80s was not ideal, and then went on to describe fantastic qualities of men. I find that very interesting. Now, I will say from my own perspective, I grew up in a single father situation, so I had the best example of man and fatherhood, and that was my pops. Everything that they said right there. He was a hard-ass worker, structured as hell, objective as hell, logical as hell, and he got to the work. He got it done. And as a young boy looking at him and reflecting his image, it was a fantastic example. Now, what I will say is that, again, the majority of men growing up in America do not have that experience because a father like my father wasn't present, or just a father in general. But specific to the bad messages, I would say one of the bad messages that I received early on, and this wasn't from my father, because when my dad was a single father, I never saw women around at all. He was focused on me. But the idea of the more bodies that you got, the more viscous innards that you take down, the more manly, and almost to a degree where it's almost like a competition. I would say that those are some of the bad images, and reflecting that within your masculinity, as if you are more masculine, the more box or viscous innards that you get access to is not a good branding to upkeep within masculinity. Quick emergency meeting. I was recently searching for my name online and found way too much personal information, which brought me down this weird rabbit hole of how that could have happened, and found out that there's companies out there called data brokers that will sell your data to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And it's a nasty, disgusting feeling knowing that there's bad actors out there selling my information, selling your information for profit. But that's why I'm recommending today's sponsor, Aura. Now, I use Aura to automatically remove my information from these sites and keep my information off. But they do other things as well, such as bank fraud and identity theft alerts, VPN access. But guys, utilize my link down in the description box down below for a 14-day trial. At least see if you've been compromised. Privacy is king in this day and age, and you should know if your information is out there. So again, utilize my link, aura.com/MTR, in the description box down below to try 2 weeks free. That's way more than enough time to see if your personal data has been exposed. Go now. Let's keep on listening.
You got along with your coworkers. Nobody wanted to be considered a jerk.
That is true. Some of the definitions of manhood, I think, were negative, right? You don't whine, you don't cry.
No emotion.
You're not a jerk. I do like the thing you brought up, though, about being a...
How is that negative? No, you're not supposed to whine. You're not supposed to be a victim. You're not supposed to act pathetic. You're not supposed to complain, or more accurately, over-complain. And I would argue that the current modern young man of today gets more of these references that it's okay to be a victim. It's okay to be this over-complainer. It's okay to simp. It's okay to display and, let all your emotions go. No, that's not okay. Because too many of them receive this goddamn participation trophy shit. They get told that everybody is equal outside of level of effort that is put into something. We're reducing the strength of men and told that they're all equal just for showing up. Bullshit. I don't want to see no whining. Men shouldn't be whining and crying and shit like that unless there's something significant that happened within their life. Don't talk to me until you have a major death in your family or you break both your legs. But outside of that, I can't stand when they lead with all this weak ass shit. Be a respectful man. Be a stoic man. Be a responsive man. Don't over leverage being a jerk. But hey, listen, sometimes as a man, you need to be confrontational.
Protector. Because for some reason, that part of it, I think, appealed to me. And at its best, it then counterbalanced the idea of being strong, right? Like, you're strong not to pick on people, right? Not to be a bully, not to dominate others. Instead, it's
to
strength
defend people
in order to protect
people.
Right?
Okay.
And for me, a lot of being a man was being self-sufficient. Right? The idea of I can handle myself and make my way through the world.
All right, so now fast forward. We're going to pick up the conversation when they begin to speak about single-parent households.
But there are, the story you tell is the story of probably most kids.
A lot of kids.
Across the country.
Yeah.
If, you're a single parent, you don't have somebody at home, a lot of kids are, they got to get up, make their own breakfast, find their way. They're doing that every day because there isn't an alternative.
Correct. And figuring out what that balance is.
And figuring out that's exactly the point. What is the balance?
Is tough.
Which is very different from how we parented our kids, how Kelly is, and you and Kelly are parenting your younger sons now.
But part of it, don't you think part of it was also time specific in the sense that when we were coming up, the idea of kids just being out and having adventures and just getting home in time for dinners, especially during the summers, right? Part of what happened, and I maybe affected boys a little more than girls, I don't know, is that freedom, that sense of being able to build up resilience and a sense of competence and a sense of I can manage the world around me because the stakes weren't so high. When I think about kids now on the South Side, same neighborhoods where you guys grew up, but the chances of possibly getting shot or the chances of, some other terrible thing happening are higher. And I think that affected everybody's parenting and it affected how we handle kids, right? So that now suddenly, instead of just saying, all right, get out of here and come back for dinner time, now it's a play date. And where are you? And do we know the parents where you're playing? And so on and so forth.
We see a good example in it in one of my favorite shows on Netflix that has become the topic of conversation amongst a lot of people, particularly in Black homes, is this series Forever, which is a beautiful story of young love in a Black neighborhood, and it is not traumatic and bad things don't happen.
It's just regular kids.
It's just regular kids that reflects all of our lives in real ways. And I know you watched some of that, and Barack, you are well aware of it. But the show has created a lot of conversation in terms of how do you raise emotionally intelligent boys and what we get right and what we get wrong. Not just among boys, but kids in general.
We watched it as a family. We watched the whole series as a family and enjoyed it a lot. And it was really fun to hear the boys talk about, oh, you guys would have done that, or you guys wouldn't have done that. That was eye-opening as a parent.
Yeah.
You know, because
they're evaluating you.
They've got
a little checklist.
They're evaluating our parenting, or they're evaluating their parenting based on their own.
That's crazy. That's a crazy thing Dad would do.
Yeah. But this brings me back to Emma. Emma's trying to raise these boys, and so she's trying to be somewhere between Forever and then the other show that people are talking about, Adolescence, which I haven't watched yet, which it gets into sort of the misogyny that young boys are exposed to,
and the online, you know,
the Manosphere.
They're getting their parenting.
They're getting their
online.
parenting.
They're getting their notions of manhood from extreme
extremists.
Extremists.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because let's go back to the original question. All right, Emma's trying to figure out how to raise boys.
Hold on. Raising both boys and girls within this new digital age presents issues that our society has never tackled ever before. And it is especially difficult if solid family structure is not present consistently at home. The reason that there's so many boys to young men searching for father figures, pseudo-father figures, pseudo-uncles online is because many of them were raised in single mother households, or many of them lack direction or structure within their life. But I think it's important for women to understand is that no matter how good of a mother that you are, a boy will always crave a masculine presence in his life. And the easiest and the most accessible way to find it nowadays is through the internet, where many men just speak the truth. They give structure. You may call men-centric content or the manosphere as littered with extremists, but that's just not true. These men are getting legitimate guidance on how better to live their lives and how better to find and attract a woman for their life. Now, has some of the messages been co-opted by bullshit? I ain't gonna disagree with you there, all right? But the audience knows what's up. And I'm not talking about the audience that gets their fill, that decides things based off of titles or clippable moments, but those that really look at the content and invest significant time in trying to understand it.
I think we did a pretty good job of raising our girls. But I've said often that I think I would have had more difficulty raising a son.
I agree.
Because I think I might have been more judgmental, harder, and I would have tried to. I like to think I would have been more self-aware enough to combat that. But I just think father-son relationships, for me particularly, if I don't have a dad around to show it to me, might have been more difficult. So talk about, Craig, just how you thought about it. Was it just you took what your dad had done and you said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try the same thing.
Or were there things
did
you
it
didn't
change
want to
over
do?
time?
Listen, I appreciate Barack saying that. I think that was actually a very important statement right there. He's essentially saying he would have had a tougher time with a boy because he wasn't raised with a father. Ergo, the massive importance of having a two-parent household, a man in the house, because if not, it can perpetuate a cycle.
It was a little bit of everything, but what you're both saying. Initially, I thought, okay, I'm going to take what I learned from Dad, all the things that I thought were positive, and then the couple of things that I thought were negative, I was going to try and repurpose.
Right.
What were some of the positives?
Well, it's just kind of the stuff that I named before. The willingness to get up and go to work every day, taking me with him to see what it was like to have male relationships, either at work, at the barbershop. He didn't go to the gym, but in places where men hung out.
Right.
The record store, we would go to the record store every now and then, and he'd have a bunch of friends there. That sounds like an old
I know, the record
idea,
store.
going to the record store.
It's come back.
It's come back.
Oh, has it? Okay, good.
It's retro.
But those were some of the positive things. You know, how to walk with mom when you're walking down the street. Always walk on the street side.
Yeah. On the street
And
side.
holding the door and opening the door for her, allowing her to go in. It was just things like that.
Right.
And then I'd have to really work at thinking of something negative that Dad did.
Okay.
But
Well, what about? Let me ask this though. I mean, Dad also came home, put his feet up. He didn't always cook. He didn't do dishes. He didn't do.
But you have to remember that I was thinking at the time that was okay because he was at work all day and he needed to rest, and mom was always cooking. So, but that's a good one. That's a good potential negative.
Gender roles, very clear.
Very clear gender roles.
The man was having a hard time in order to figure out some of the negatives that their father went through to provide for the family. And here goes Michelle with all her damn feminism. Meanwhile, it worked for your family. It worked for the parents, for the dynamic. The man was doing everything in his power to ensure that y'all had everything that you needed as children. You don't need to criticize him. Both of y'all grew up just fine. My thing is that many feminists today will talk ill of couples, families that want to exercise traditional gender roles and act like it's a bad thing. And in fact, it's what can give a household supreme structure, awesome balance, and long-term stability.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to do the positive things and then sort of expose Avery, who's my oldest, to less of the negative things. And you have to remember, Avery's 33, so he didn't have to worry. We didn't have to worry about social media. There was very little internet stuff. We really focused on how to behave out in public as a guy, or I should say, how to get along, how to treat girls, how to have conversations. But with Austin and Aaron, it's more of how do you deal with social media?
Yeah.
And which was in Forever, the whole premise of the show. What are you supposed to say when you do
Is this
that?
a spoiler alert?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Was a video that got leaked. So we're constantly talking to them about that. And now I have even more things to draw from because I raised Avery,
right.
And there were some things that I was like, I wish I hadn't done that.
I could have done that better.
I could have done that better, whether it was sort of teaching them how to drink. I mean, if you don't know how to, you could end up in a bad situation.
That's true.
More direct conversations about the first time you are with a woman intimately.
Do you mean sex, Craig?
I do mean sex, and it's funny how I was tiptoeing around.
Craig got a little.
I was
gonna let
tiptoeing
him
around
do
it
it
because
too,
I
right?
feel like I'm on
You
television.
made me nervous. I was just like, let me just let him get through this.
But
Damn, man, just say it with your damn chest. What, you guys gonna lose a brand sponsor for saying sex? Anyway, I find it interesting that they can have this conversation and not talk about some of the real issues at hand. Back in the time periods of their father growing up, it was expected that men were to be chivalrous, to hold open doors for, women. And then nowadays, it can be considered a microaggression. Or that men and women have been equalized so much that biological men can now participate within women's sports. This kind of dynamic confuses boys that are trying to figure out how to be men. But then the content readily available on the internet can take these unique situations and guide them to make the best choices for them. But instead of acknowledgement of that guidance, instead they get shamed. Instead, they're told that the content that they're reviewing is extreme. But continuing to ignore the plight of young boys and men is exactly why, one of the many major reasons why y'all party lost. That's a major reason Trump is now in office, is because there's so many men that are tired of being ignored. And the Democratic Party has made it a mission to prop up women's issue while ignoring men's issues. Now, what's actually interesting about that is they begin to acknowledge boys being ignored in the next section.
Still on the come up, but I do think this idea of men, there are many different ways of being a good, strong, successful, happy man. I think that's something that young people are more open to and recognize. And so that's promising. And we see it, when we talk to Millie and Sasha and their friends. I think that what we need to do in order to take advantage of that is to, as a society, as communities, recognize that this kind of transition from the old models that you and I, Craig, grew up on. Just like you said, you took a lot of good stuff from your dad, but then there were some modifications that just had to be made either because of blind spots, limits, lack of resource, what have you.
The times.
But, we joke that talking to Millie and Sasha, sometimes they go out with their friends and, they're in a group and the guy's got crocodile arms, Yeah. It's like...
Not picking up the check.
Not picking up the check. And it's like, okay, you don't have to pick it up all the time. But if you're never picking it up,
right,
that's a problem.
Says something about you.
If you're never opening a door or pulling out a chair, because that's just common courtesy. That's just being kind, right?
Kindness.
So for those of you who do not have sons, so Emma, we are rooting for you because those of us with daughters,
we need good men.
We've got to have good guys out there, not necessarily to get married, but to make sure that what we're learning, I think, is that when we don't think about boys and just assume they're going to be okay because they've been running the world and they've got all the advantages relative to the girls, and all of which has historically been true in all kinds of ways.
I think we got to stop sending all of these mixed signals to young men, right? Because society is confusing them. The messages that they're receiving is confusing them about what it is to be a man, what they're supposed to do in order to provide for a woman. And we're stripping away that clarity to grow into strong, confident leaders. For example, if you're going to present the issue that men and women are equal, then why can I not be equally responsible for the check? We're equal, right? But you guys fought for equality. You fought to be equal. But now there's an issue if 50-50 is presented. Now, as a man, I don't agree with 50-50 because of the dynamics of the relationship that I'd like to set up. But again, we get back into that gender roles conversation. But these young men are confused. Are they crocodile arming or T-Rex arming, whatever he said, because they're like, well, she wants to be a strong, independent woman. Why can't she not pick up this bill? And at the same junction, many of these young men want to forgo being taken advantage of. They know that women might want to go on a date with them because they want Ruth Chris, not because the woman is actually fundamentally interested in him as a man, but they want to go have fun for a couple of hours somewhere and they've never been to that restaurant. So come on, guy, go take me over here. But if there's an expectation for men to take up these traditional chivalrous type of roles, then do not dissuade young women from practicing some of those traditional type of roles as well. Men and women are not equal. We can be equally valued, but for different things. We complement each other. We're not meant to compete. But as a man, you cannot expect to display yourself in such a giving way without also getting something back in return. If you want men to show up as leaders, protectors, as well as providers, then women should be bringing something to the table as well. Sprinkle in a little bit of modesty. Sprinkle in a little bit of femininity. Sprinkle in a mindset that honors participation, that honors letting him be a man, not honoring wearing a power struggle as a badge of honor.
But precisely because of that, if you're not thinking about what's happening to boys and how are they being raised, then that can actually hurt women. And I would argue that some of the broad political trends we've seen, not just in this country, but around the world, have to do with this sense of, boys, men not feeling as if they are seen, feeling as if they count. Mm-hmm. And that then makes them more interested in appeals by folks who say, you know what, the reason you don't feel respected is because women have been doing this, or this group has been doing this, or that group's been doing this, and that is not that's not a healthy place to be. And I will say,
it's not a healthy place to stay
as quote unquote progressives.
But you must understand it.
Democrats, progressive parents, enlightened ones, we've made that mistake sometimes in terms of our rhetoric, where it's like we're constantly talking about, what's wrong with the boys mm-hmm. instead of what's right with them. Mm. We rightly have tried to invest in girls to make sure that there's a level playing field and then they're not barred from opportunities. But we haven't been as willing, I think, to be intentional about investing in the boys, and that's been a mistake. And I think people are starting to recognize that. So going back to your optimism, I think there's a healthier conversation taking place now, both among this new generation of young women and men, but also among the public at large that's starting to see like, hey, we got to do better by our boys. And if we do better by our boys and we're producing stronger, more confident men, that's going to be good for our girls and our women as well.
All right, guys, I'm going to conclude the conversation right here. I've gone over like 1/8 of the entire conversation. I'll leave a link to it down in the description box down below so you can go check out the full thoughts here. Again, I'm not trying to get political here, but what Barack is bringing up right here at the end is exactly what I was talking about before. It's exactly why so many younger men have been pushed from being liberal to conservative, because the conservative side seems to speak to a lot of their issues a lot more than the other. You cannot knock a man on his push towards guidance. And if you've been pushing so hard for so long to uplift women in lieu of men, then they're going to try to find the information somewhere, or they're going to try to find recognition of their situations somewhere, because for far too long, their issues have been dismissed like they don't even matter. So when you take a look at some of the numbers, such as the self-deletion rate, the homelessness rate, the incarceration rate, it's obvious that there's something that's happening. And until you can get down and address the granular issues, the creation of online uncles and father figures is as a result of this miss. It is medication for the illness. If these issues didn't arise, shit, maybe I wouldn't even be here. But because they're so prevalent, I ain't going nowhere. All right, guys, that's the remainder of my thoughts. There was also a large part of this. They started talking about emotional values for men and being emotionally intelligent, like all this shit. Feel free to go up on there if you want to see the rest of the conversation. But I have been your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews. If you're first time here, people much more affectionately refer to me as MTR. But hopefully you enjoyed your stay here today. And I appreciated you for rocking with me here today. Last but not least, guys, leave me some comments down below. What is it that you thought about this particular conversation? As per usual, when I'm closing these things out, if we get a lot of comments, we're going to go live. All right? So I can have live conversations in regards to what's going on right here. But I'll see you guys soon. Until next time, YouTube. Peace. You is ratchet as they come. Rainbow weaves and batwing lashes, weighing more than a man. What time is your football practice? I bet you can hit that A-gip like a mug. How you big back it? Said a man must buy you gifts. Where here goes a Fitbit tracker. Are you mad? Cause you got 3 kids by 4 different dads. You pick cookies, then you bash. Oh man, when you get sad, then